What up, what up, what up, everybody? It is Josh Thomas, aka DFS Up North, here with another Fanshare Sports first look. And this week, boys and girls, we are at the WGC Fed Ex St. Jude Invitational down in Memphis, Tennessee at TPC Southwind. This is a WGC event, so it is an invite only with the top 78 players in the world, and we have no cut this week. So you get a 6 of 6, and you get a 6 of 6, and you get a 6 of 6. So after weeks and weeks and weeks of low, like under 5%, 6 of 6 percentage, now we get 100% this week, barring anybody WDs with COVID-related symptoms or something like that. So these weeks are a little bit different, and they do take a little bit of a different strategy. That's something that we'll be covering in my Taking the Pulse article for our Fanshare Pro members. If you are not a Fanshare Pro member, you can use the code JOSH for 20% off that membership right now and get in and get access to not only that, but you also get access to our Discord where there's lots of good conversations happening. And then you get access to our world-class #1 ownership percentages, which are really fantastic. And as I've been, just this morning, been looking around, kind of talking to some of the other people, and the thing that's really stuck out to me since the restart is that industry-wide, myself included, we are struggling to predict how these golf tournaments are going to play out. It really is, we haven't seen as many screenshots on Twitter and things like that of these big wins. And we're also seeing, lots of Millie Maker wins, which is clearly, one of the biggest contests out there on DraftKings every single week. Won by lots of amateurs, right? And won by lots of people. I don't think we've had a winner yet this year that's actually maxed the tournament, meaning that they put in 150 lineups. And what that, again, tells me is that industry-wide, we're struggling, again, to predict how things are going to happen. All right. And the beauty of Fanshare Sports is that these ownership projections are built on what the industry is saying, right? So I really think that there is some merit to just completely fading the ownership, right? And playing these guys that nobody's talking about. And what we're seeing, again, is that not only are amateurs winning and that these guys who are able to max out these contests are not winning, but we're seeing that the total ownership of these lineups are super low, right? Another thing that kind of gives credence to that is that the optimal lineup, which typically like nobody's ever going to get, has been, super low total ownership on it, but also super low salary, right? So I think as a whole, we can start to really try to get away from some of that groupthink, and maybe even starting this week. At WGC is a little bit different, but I'm not going to be afraid to really play the ownership to my favor this week and try to get away from that industry groupthink, because clearly for the first 5 to 6 weeks here, it hasn't been working, right? So we need to start to maybe change the way we're thinking of how we build lineups and how we evaluate plays. So that's something that I think that, I'm really going to dive into this week. I'm going to, highlight in my Fanshare Pro article, the Taking the Pulse article this week, and really looking at how I can use our ownership projections to really help me build better lineups or lineups with a chance to win. Because again, I say this all the time that I ain't here to min cash, right? And if you're playing GPPs just hoping to get a lineup in the cash, you're doing it wrong, right? You need to, any money that you are putting into GPPs needs to essentially be lit on fire, right? You should be playing 3-mans and 5-mans and winner take alls and cash and 50-50s and head-to-heads. That should be the majority of what you're playing every week. And the reason that you play those contests are to keep your bankroll afloat, to keep your head above water, right? This idea that you can be just a strictly GPP player, unless you have a big bankroll or you bank early in your DFS career, it's really hard to do, right? You essentially, in the course of let's say it's a 30-week golf season, you really only are going to likely get 2, 3, maybe 4 big weeks, right? So to be able to sustain yourself, to be able to continue firing bullets at these big weeks, you need to be playing some of these cash lineups, but you need to be entering lineups into these winnable contests to keep your head above water. I think that also maybe has been a little bit of our issue, is that we're trying to mitigate our risk here by playing maybe these safer, higher owned plays and GPPs, and the variance is really just kicking everybody's butt this year. So, all right, I'm gonna get off my high horse. I don't want to give too much of that strategy stuff out for free. Be on the lookout for some of that in our Taking the Pulse article later this week. So, TPC Southwind, boys and girls. We are in Memphis, Tennessee. Obviously we got the big stuff going on at Fanshare Pro. Use that code Josh for 20% off. But let's get into the course here, right? Par 72, 7,237 yards. Not a short par 70, but not a really long one either, right? The way that it's routed, you can kind of take advantage of this course if you're longer off the tee. So design Ron Pritchard with Huey Green and Fuzzy Zeller were the guys who helped him out on this. We are back to champion Bermuda grass. Should be pretty tight. It should run closer to 12. It really last year it ran a little bit slower because Memphis had gotten like essentially their entire rain for the year by that point in July. So what they did last year is they kept the fairways pretty short, and the rough was also pretty short. At 2.5 inches. I would imagine that we might get it a little bit higher this year, but again, it's that we have fairways that are Zoysia, so they're perfect conditions. If you can hit fairways, you are going to be in great shape to attack these greens. These greens are a little bit smaller at 4,300 square feet. They're not like the big ones that we saw at 3M last week, but they're not super small like RBC Heritage, but they're on the small side. Lots of great bunkering, water hazards in play. But yeah, that rough is not going to really, if they come out and say it's going to be at like 2.5, 3 inches again, it's really not going to be very penal for guys. This is a no cut event, right? Everybody makes the cut no matter what. And there's going to be a ton of mid irons here. We'll see when we look at kind of where the strokes are coming from, but it's a lot of that 125 to 175 range. So for most of these guys, that's going to be a wedge. All right. And then the small greens, more of an emphasis on strokes gained approach. We look at kind of how it plays out here. It's really hard to jump on putting, but what we've seen here in the past is that and that's kind of the same for every course, is that you really need to putt well to do well here. But putting, I think, can take on a little bit more importance this week. So I don't like to necessarily target putting, but I'm not going to necessarily target bad putters here. We look at kind of the results from the past. We look at this top row. I mean, Brooks obviously won last year. He gained 2 strokes putting. This is back when Brooks was obviously crushing everything. Webb, great putter. Leishman, okay. Fitzpatrick, great putter. Fleetwood wasn't a great putter last week, but historically is a pretty good putter. Rory, an okay putter. Ram's a great putter at times. Poulter's an elite putter. Horschel's an elite putter. And then Bubba's not. So if you're not going to be a great putter, you really got to make up for it with your approach game, your off the tee game, things like that. We look at kind of how this course played out last year. This was the first time that we've had this as a WGC. So it actually moved back, I believe, about a month into the July part of the schedule. This typically was held earlier. This was just the Fed Ex St. Jude. Not a great strong field by any means. But it was now that we have this really strong field, this is kind of how things played out. It played about a half a stroke under par last year, and that's pretty standard for this course. Obviously, your par 5s are going to play the easiest. 16 is going to be the easiest par 5 on the course. And then 17, or then 3 is your other one, but not a ton of eagles, right? Only 11 or 16 eagles last year. Decent amount of birdies, lots of pars, not a ton of big numbers. This is just kind of a course that you got to fairway, green, get a look at birdie, and if you can make it, that's great. And that's a little bit why I'm like, okay, we need to maybe look at some guys who can putt well and not just hope that they can putt well. Like, I really like Sergio this week, but you're really just hoping he putts well, right? Looking at kind of how this course played out over the days, right? It was round 3 moving day was over a stroke under par, but the rest were right around minus 5.3. 2 short par 4s, 2 long par 3s, 1 short par 4. And then here's the real meat of this, right? Medium and long par 4s. Almost all of the holes. Oh, I got my numbers wrong here. But almost all of the holes are in that medium to long range. That should be a 7, not an 11. Sorry. I had 7-11 in my head here. But yeah, you're going to really want to fire on these medium and long par fours, and fairway strokes on average right in the middle, rough strokes right in the middle, but that putts per round, right? 26.8. Again, we see that a lot because of these smaller greens, but you got to make some putts here to win. Approach strokes, right? 9% more than average from 150 to 175, 2% more from 125 to 150, 2% more from 175 to 200. But these long approach strokes of over 200, you are not going to see a lot of. You're not going to see a lot of 125 to 100 yard shots here. All right. So again, looking at guys who play par fours well, right? It's a par 70. I think that good comps for this course are places like RBC Heritage. Southwind scoring, or actually we'll go to WGC history first. So these WGC events, we have 4 every year. And some guys, typically play your top guys are going to play in all of them, but they the nice thing is that they don't have a cut, right? So we get kind of a, everybody's playing all the same rounds, things like that. We can get an idea of who really plays well in these WGC events. All right. So obviously Rory tops the list here, just absolutely crushing it. Victor Perez, he's only played in 2, but it's done pretty well. He's really struggled since his return, or since his trip over to the US, but he is an elite iron player. So I think is maybe a punt GPP option. He's in play, but then you got your DJs, your JTs. Scotty's only played 1. Rom, EVR coming off I love EVR for a bounce back here. Again, I say that I want to target guys that can putt, and he can't putt, but I really like EVR coming off chalk. He's going to get a big price drop. People are going to be off him. I love that bounce back here. Poston 1, but hey, we're talking about guys who can putt. If Poston's irons play is on, he's definitely in play here. Casey, Kiz, Fowler, Sergio, love all those guys. I really like Sungjae here this week. Depending on the price, looking at the odds, I was really shocked that we have guys like I really like Billy Ho, who we're going to see here in a second as a good TPC Southwind player, but at 45 to 1, how is Billy Ho at 45 to 1 and Sungjae is 80 to 1? That just makes no sense to me. Looking at Southwind history, I eliminated anybody that had only played here once, right? So that means essentially that they just played here last year. And I want to look at guys that maybe played here back when it was just the regular Fed Ex St. Jude and have some good course history. So guys like Brooks, right? Brooks obviously won here last year, but he's played here 5 times and had a lot of success. Danny Berger's won here twice. I think that he is punching above his weight class right now and is going to be likely pretty high owned this week. It really depends on kind of where they price him, but if he's in that $8,800, $8,900 $1,000 range, he's going to be really, really popular. And that's, again, we're talking about maybe getting away from that groupthink. Easy option out there on Danny Berger for me. Rafa, only 2 appearances, but has played pretty well here. Obviously, he's struggling with his game right now, but could be a high upside guy. Really like guys like Ches Reavie this week. I think he might end up being popular if he's pretty cheap. Billy Ho, I love this week. Ian Poulter, tons of great history here, playing pretty well. It really comes down to him is that he's got to continue to putt well, right? If he putts well, he's an elite putter. He can score like crazy. These smaller greens are really he's going to struggle with a little, I think, because it's going to be hard for him to hit a lot of greens in regulation, but definitely an interesting play. And then Sned's decent history here, should have a really, really high upside week. Hasn't been playing great by any means, but good history here. WGC's been done pretty well in those over his career. Looking at my picks for the week, I just think it's hard to get off Bryson for a winner. When we look at WGC history, he does not have one under his belt yet, but he, we see lots. It's very rare that somebody that's not a stud wins a WGC event. You look at Brooks last year, right? Brooks won. We had Kiz win the match play. But for the most part, we were getting, absolute studs. So if we look at last year, I'm just going to bring this up here. Reed won the one earlier this year. DJ, Kiz, Koepka, McIlroy, Mickelson, Watson, Thomas, Schauffele, Johnson, Matsuyama, Rose, Scott, Day, Johnson, Matsuyama. That's all the way back to 2016, right? So again, strong studs are likely to win this event. So for me, there's just nobody really playing better than Bryson right now. So good off the tee. If he can avoid that like short wedge range, he's going to be in really good shape. Again, we talked about Chalk Donkey being Danny Berger. I think that he's going to be really popular this week. Billy Ho is my sleeper. Might not end up being a sleeper, just depending on the price, but he's a guy that I think that in my initial look looks just really strong, like a really strong play. So we've got again, have tons of content out for you guys this week. Make sure that you give us a follow on Twitter. DFS Up North, Fanshare Sports, DK Golf Bargains, Lunas, DK DFS Strength. If you are not a member yet, please use that code Josh for 20% off. Again, you get access to our best ownership projections in the world. We have our all of our showdown model that Lunas puts out. That is awesome, right? Everything you need to know right in one place. Really, really, really handy. I will have my GBP article looking at again, right? Like I said, looking at, hey, how do we get away from some of this groupthink with using our ownership to do that? Really excited to fire that out for you guys this week. Good luck. Congratulations. Everybody gets a 6 of 6 this week. And hopefully we see some green screens from some of our Fanshare Pro members this week. Thanks, guys.